Test. Testing, testing. Okay. This mic is loud. Well, the mic ain't loud. The mic is quiet. And that's the problem. It's quiet. So I have to turn the volume up. And when I turn the volume up, you raise the noise floor. So my next move is a cloud lifter. Okay, we're looking a little crooked here. Are we? Yeah. What's going on, my friend, my brother? It's too far now. Got to do a little sound check. Um, you know what? I got a new interface for my phone. Um, this one is incredibly clear, and I'm listening to it now. What I'm Yeah, this is incredibly clear. This mic cushion still stinks, but whatever, I can deal with it. But yeah, I had to because iRigs, the problem with iRigs is they are not grounded. So, I mean, the first iRigs, the iRig 2s, they're not grounded. So the common problem, you can go through YouTube, you can go through whatever forums, Gearspace, whatever forums. The common issue is you hear a weird crackling and a weird hissing with iRigs. So I went and got a cheap, it's a Joyo. If you look at my last live, which was like this morning when I kind of tested it, it's on there. I'm gonna do a shootout between the iRig and the Joyo, and you could tell you'll definitely be able to hear the difference. Not only that, but I set my interface where everything else is plugged into over there. I set it to instead of 44.1, I set it to 48, which is you could set it to 48 or like 92 or something like that. I used to set it at 92. 92 is good for like classical or big band jazz. Everything else is recorded in 48. Um, and then it's like, you know, the industry standard for radio and everything else is 44. But the general standard for recording is 48. 93 or 92 or whatever, or 96, I can't remember. It's 190, whatever, 90, whatever. Um, it starts to sound sterile, and I didn't believe it until, and I'm one of those man, analog, stereo, or analog, digital, whatever, man. You know, because I've seen people say, oh, you know, oh, that's analog, and they're like, no, it was digital. It was recorded in the box, and it was mixed digital. It was recorded digital. It's digitally recorded, digitally mixed, and digitally mastered. None of it is, you know. So I think, um, in a lot of ways, it's like goofiness. It's like whatever. But I will say the thing with analog is you can raise the noise floor and it would sound better. That's how human ears work. So if you're recording to tape, you know, a famous thing is record things to tape where you could just like achieve tape saturation because you're recording onto tape and then you mix it in and master it in the digital domain. All that being said, I went around the corner, up the street, down around to the supermarket and back to make this point. That interface, you can actually set it to 48, which is what I record from, which is what's coming out of there, 48. So it already sounds better, and it costs less. It costs like, I paid like $30 for it, plus shipping and handling. My iRig, I paid like 100 and something for it, and it just sounded like trash. So I sprung for this cheap one and instantly like heard the difference. It's got its own volume knob on it. It's all digital. I think that's why it works. It works by 5 volt. It's powered by your phone, and it has its own power source, and you know it uses the phone's power source. Um, it's all grounded, which you're not gonna worry about. Like usually, if something isn't, well, I'm not even gonna say that. You could say if something isn't grounded, um, it's gonna pick up other things. It will, but just in and of itself, it would just like I would turn everything off except the lights, and it would just be like, and I was like, no, man. You know, there are a couple of recordings, like live streams, where you hear, like, you're like, wow, okay, what's that weird buzzing? What is that in the background? Yeah, it was an iRig. And with this one, you don't have to get a separate app for it. The IK Media iRig app actually works with this. So it's just better. It was better. It's better. It's cheaper. You know what I mean? So it's got more options. It's just nicer. You know. Thank you. My day was all right. It was all right. My day was all right. If many of you guys might know, yeah, I'm still weak, but as many of you guys, if you've been coming back a return watcher, um, I was really really sick. I streamed a few times, like probably like the last week and a half. I was like really really sick, and I had to yeah, well, I think it was C19. I've had C19 twice before, um, and I think this because right now, like if you have the flu or something, it should be gone. Um, this is probably going on the third week, and I just feel I've got no temperature, I've got nothing, but I still feel like I'm fighting something. And it was the same way the last time when I was diagnosed with C19. Um, I had to go to the doctor. I was like, "Yo, like I feel horrible. Like what is going on?" He was like, "It's post fill in the blank." This was like he wasn't a doctor. He was like an X-ray tech, and he said, "Man, I'm just getting over it." He said, "I had it. He had the C19 a while ago, and it like after 18 months, it finally went away. Now, when that happened, it was like maybe I had some lingering effects for like maybe 5 months. This is different, man. This is first of all the other time I could kind of function with it. Um, this is kind of hard, man. This is some different stuff. This is some like mutation of it, but it feels the same. It felt the same, but it's the same. It's a different post C19 feeling. Like it feels worse. To be honest, it feels worse. You know, it feels like I have it just feels worse. You know, so no, I don't. I don't really listen to Slipknot. You know, I mean that's no diss to Joey Jordison. I think he's one of the all-time greats. You know, like, but a lot of, I'll say this: a lot of what Joey Jordison was doing in Slipknot, like this, that's like old school gospel stuff. You know, um, like a lot of his riffs, and you know, so by the time Slipknot came around, I was into really complex stuff. And like I said, that's no diss to like Slipknot or anything like that. You know, I don't know. It's weird. I don't, you know, it's not something I necessarily listen to. You know what I mean? And that, like I said, that's no diss to them. That's just, I don't know. You kind of move on to things that are more challenging, for lack of. And I hate saying that because I don't want to. Oh, you think you're the best drummer in the world? No, I don't. I'm constantly chasing new challenges, and if something doesn't challenge, like one guy, like I like Linkin Park, but I don't I don't learn the songs. I like them. I don't learn the songs because you know it's pretty simple, man. You know, for me, it's simple. You know, and I mean, like, and I'm not, you know, this is a common thing, and it's kind of weird saying that to people, especially if it's like their favorite band, and they kind of look at you like, what? No, you know, there's certain stuff that's for listening, and it's great to hear. Like one of my all-time favorite bands is Van Halen. I'm not learning Alex Van Halen's drums because by the time they were coming out with that stuff, I was playing like Rush and like note for note. And Emerson, Lake and Palmer and the Police, like really a lot more difficult stuff, you know, and like a lot of jazz and a lot of fusion, Chick Corea, you know. I was listening, like learning Dave Weckl stuff, and Vinny Colaiuta when he was with Frank Zappa, you know what I mean? Terry Bozzio when he was with Frank Zappa, you know. Joey Jordison ain't rocking like that. Sorry, he's not. You know what I mean? Alex Van Halen, sorry, he's not. You know what I mean? Like that's, you know, and Van Halen is one of my favorite bands, but that's just, I was playing stuff that was just beyond that. So, you know, and I feel weird. I feel like I have to explain myself because it comes off kind of like, oh, arrogant, but it's not arrogance. It's not, you know, I'll be the first to say I suck. It's just certain stuff I don't listen to because it's not a challenge, you know? And I think one of the things is you get to a point where it's kind of old learning everybody else's stuff. It's kind of old, bro. Like, you know, unless you're gonna like, if you ask a drummer, like if you're asking me to play something note for note, I'm not gonna do it. If I'm in a situation where I'm in a band and we do it, I'm gonna make it my own. I'm gonna play it the way I want to play it, you know. But I'm not gonna play something note for note unless somebody's paying me to play note for note. But I'm not. I don't learn stuff note for note. You know what I mean? I stopped learning stuff. Like I learned every Rush album up to like Chutes and Ladders, from the first one with Neil Peart to up to Chutes and Ladders, note for note. Transcribed all of his stuff, note for note. Same thing with Zeppelin. Same thing with Hendrix, because I wanted to learn Mitch Mitchell style. You know what I mean? Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Go look him up if you've never heard of him. That drummer, Carl Palmer, will make your head explode. He was doing stuff back then in like the 60s and early 70s that dudes in metal today are just kind of catching up to now. So there's a lot, and I was learning that stuff in junior high school and high school. Eventually, you learn everybody else's stuff to the point where you get tired of learning everybody else's stuff. You get tired of sounding like everybody else, and you want to learn your own. You want to develop your own style. You know what I mean? So I'm still in the process of developing my own style. And well, number one, that's not a slight against learning other people's stuff. That is how you develop your vocabulary. Once you develop your vocabulary, like it just makes no, you come to the conclusion that why should I, I could just play me. I could do me, number one. Number two, you start sounding like everybody else, and you can't sound like everybody else if you're too busy playing everybody else's stuff. You know what I mean? So, I hate saying, no, I don't listen to it, or no, I don't know that, or no. It's just, I don't, I listen to it. I don't learn that stuff, You know what? I know basic Afrobeat. That's a good question. I'll leave that alone. You know what I hate about trolls? If I saw you face to face, you wouldn't say that at all. And you know you wouldn't. You know you wouldn't. So if you wouldn't say it to somebody in their face, don't say it online. Afrobeat is hard. It's deceptively hard because it's got a weird bounce, but it's hard, man. Afrobeat's hard. Yes, Tony Allen. You know, when he left, they had to hire two drummers to play what he was playing. Fela Kuti, when he was playing with Fela Kuti, they had to actually get two other drummers to play what he was playing. Dave Matthews. Carter Beauford, he's good, but he's kind of like Dennis Chambers Jr., where it's you know what I mean. It's a lot of that's all Dennis Chambers. That's Dennis Chambers circa loud jazz, Blue Matter, loud jazz, and Pickett's Live. If you want to hear anything, um, it's no, it's on my phone, and somebody was calling me. But my bad, y'all. Either that or an alarm. When the sound drops out, it's either somebody's calling or it's an alarm. But like a lot of um, well, yeah. So Carter Beauford, as good as he is, he's Dennis Chambers Jr. I hate to say it, but if you listen to anything he's done with Dave Matthews, it's Dennis Chambers to the point where he would wear the baseball hat backwards like Dennis Chambers. His set was kind of set up like Dennis Chambers. He had to go like he was like dudes would come to me like, yo man, this guy like, Carter Beauford from Dave Matthews, man, he's like Dennis Chambers. Yeah. And as soon as it's really obvious. So I don't really I mean I like Dave, I like their music, but I don't listen to it for the drums. It's and that's another thing. The problem with learning everybody else's stuff is that the situation that you're in, like for instance, people will not hire you when they can hire the original. Why would they hire you when they can just like dudes ain't checking for Carter Beauford? Why? Just go to Dennis Chambers. He's still around. He's still playing. They'd rather hire Dennis Chambers. You know what I mean? So, and that's a common thing when drummers get stuck in the rut of, you know, playing like other people's stuff note for note. And I know this because I did it. I fell into the trap of learning everybody else's stuff note for note. And I never took time out to just like play and just like develop my own style. So, I don't know. So it's and you know what, and that's not. I have to add this disclaimer because it's not a slight against Carter. It's not a slight against anybody else, whoever. You know, even like if you too, Larry Mullins Jr. He was a baby version of Stuart Copeland. Now, why would they hire Larry Mullen when they can just hire Stuart Copeland? You know what I mean? So it's, and he admitted it when they first came out. He admitted, he was like, I wasn't a really good drummer. I was just really imitating Stuart Copeland from the Police. So, like why, you know what I mean? So it's a trap that's very common with drummers, because it's an accomplishment when you learn riffs and grooves from other drummers who are like the greats. It's an accomplishment, but you can get caught in that accomplishment. So, you know. what's crazy? I heard that detuning as I was hitting it. That's a Vinny Colaiuta piece called Slink. It's actually, it's actually, oh no. That's a, oh, I hate when this mic is on. The audio sounds horrible. That's one of my songs actually. That's a song I use for like clinics and stuff. Oh, this is some. I can't watch this. This is some goofiness. Ooh, oh, this is loud. Like really loud. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I got a couple. Well, I got a few albums worth of. Let me tell you something. I went gold on Spotify alone. Uh, I got 2 EPs, 3 albums, 5 singles, and I went gold. And if I sold physical copies, 100,000 sold is gold. 500,000 in on DSPs and the streaming platforms, 500,000 is gold. I made with going gold on Spotify alone, going gold. I made $2,900, 2,937 and like 63 cents. Now, if I sold 99-cent downloads and I sold, you know, I don't know, a fifth of that in digital downloads at 99 cents a piece, you know, I'd be in a different tax bracket. So I just left the system. The music I have up there is just there, whatever. But my next move is, you know, go direct to this consumer because, you know, like DSPs, they don't do anything. They don't, you know, Apple Music, you know, Spotify, Tidal, they're paying people fractions on the penny. You know what I mean? And I knew I was going to do this. I knew I was going to leave. It just was a matter of time. So my last release was in 2020. So right now I'm building up. I have enough for. I've got 2 albums, like albums, unreleased albums. I'm gonna take probably another year and have it like another create another 2 albums and a bunch of singles. But I'm just gonna put them on a website. If anybody wants them, you can go on there. You pay 99 cents. You will get a full mix. You'll get a full mix in all 4 stems. That way, if you buy it for 99 cents, you want to listen to a stereo mix, cool. You put it in your playlist, whatever. If you want to do drum covers, you can remove the drums and have all 4 of the tracks, and you can do what you want. If you want to do a bass cover, you do the same thing. Guitar, same thing. Because it's just, you know, well, for me, I'm like, I believe in giving people more than what they ask for, you know. It's nothing for me to give out a stereo mix, a full finished stereo mix, in addition to all of the stems, you know. Because to be honest, if you like it, you could take it, you could flip it, you could slap it up, flip it, do whatever, reverse it, do it, and then you could use it for your stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give people something to kind of, oh, okay, I could use this. I could listen to his music, and then I can, like, import it into Logic or Pro Tools or whatever DAW you have, and you can kind of, I can make my own track with this track. I don't care about all that stuff, man. You got to offer people something. People don't, you know, music has been cheapened to the point where, like, In order to in order to beat companies like Napster and what have you, they had to devalue the music. But in order to still make their bottom line and devalue the music, they pay the artist less. So we, hold the brunt of all of that stuff. We're basically putting out stuff like Spotify, for example, is like 0.00037 cents on the dollar. It's not even a full penny. It's a fraction of a penny. That's crazy. You know what I mean? So, nah, dog. Nope. Nah. My approach to drum processing. Wow, you're about to crack my brain with this one. I do everything in the box. There's a lot of outboard gear that I would like to have. Just because when you're working in the box, the math kind of clouds everything, and you start to lose clarity. But that being said, it's just I use stock EQ. I do a lot of subtractive EQing. I put an EQ on every track, every track, and I use subtractive EQing to kind of get things to sound the way I want. And then what I'll do is I'll have a bus called drum bus. It's just drum bus. That is kick, snare, and room mic. So both of my room mics, I got one up there and I got one down there. Both of those kick mics, the one outside and the one inside, and this snare, along with this, I don't know. Well, let me move this. That's this. It's basically a 13-inch floor tom that I turn into a snare. So I put them all into a general drum bus. I'll put reverb, a slight reverb on the snare. And then the room mics, the kick mics, and the snare mics, again, they go into that, and that's where I add compression. Then, I'll put a compression on that bus. The toms, this also, all the toms go into a toms bus. I'll make sure those are EQ'd right. I'll pan these 40 degrees to the left, and these 40 degrees to the right. And then I put them in a toms bus with a compressor. Same compressor. An API. API is the hardware or the software are, to me, the most sweet sounding. They make your drums, they're not overbearing, but API compressors are like incredible. My EQs, I use stock EQs. Now, the overheads, I have those on an overhead bus. And I have a compressor on that one, an API compressor. I have them EQ'd the way I want, and I have a compressor plug-in on the overhead bus. What else? I know I have another bus. I can't remember. You know what? I'm lying. I put the snares and the kicks in the drum bus. The overhead, the room mics they go into a general drum bus. Now, the drum bus goes into a general mix bus. The overheads go into a general mix bus. The toms go into a general mix bus. The room mic goes into the general mix bus. That way, you have control over everything. Now that general mix bus just goes out into output. It goes into main out. Um, Let me see. Main out is usually a SSL compressor and a exciter. I can't remember. Can't remember the name of it. It's an exciter though. It's a plugin that's it's A4X or something like that, or Apex or something like that. But it's an exciter. It gives crispness to whatever to the drum mix. Now that general bus, I like to have everything piped into a general bus because it treats the drums as one unified instrument. So instead of having to I got to turn the toms down. You kind of know what you're gonna do. Once it's going into the general bus, you know how your toms gonna sound. You know what you want. But yeah, I put it all in a general bus, and that is treated as one, just all the drums. Now bass, it has its own channel. It doesn't go in a general bus. It goes into main output. Any guitars, it depends, because sometimes I've worked with two guitarists. I'll hard pan. Usually, I when it comes to and this is another thing with drums. The EQ, the stock EQs I use, you can have a mono or stereo. I make sure the kick, the snare, the room mics are mono. Those are all dead up the middle. And on the EQ, you can actually make it stereo or mono. So as far as that, everything is mono. Now, in terms of bass, I keep the bass straight up the middle. Bass guitar straight up the mono. The guitar, I have them stereo. I just like stereo guitars anyway. Keyboards, I generally keep them stereo. They're not even stereo. They're sides. It'll say sides only, So guitars, it's sides only. So if you're hearing in some earbuds or headphones or speakers, you're like, okay, well, this guitar's over here, that guitar's over there. Now, if there's a guitar solo, I'll take the guitar solo and put that mono. You know what I mean? You treat a lead solo, you treat a lead solo, like if a piano player is playing a solo, you take that solo, you put it in the middle. The guitar player's playing a solo, you put that solo in the middle. Anything that's playing a lead, you put it in the middle, because like it's what you present in the song. You got to think of it like a theater. In a theater, when you have a bunch of people, you're watching a live show. I grew up, in the New York, New Jersey, tri-state area, so I'm used to going to plays. And what they would do is they would bring the ensemble out, especially if it was kind of like a musical thing. They would bring the ensemble out, and if it was somebody doing a solo, the spotlight would be on them. Well, it's the same thing in the audio domain. If somebody's playing a solo, you want everything out of the way so the spotlight is on that solo. But once you're done with that solo, it goes back to sides only. And that, a lot of that is to make room, and the trick with EQing is sometimes you have to make stuff sound ugly in order for it to fit in the mix. And what I mean is, like, there'll be times where I'll have a full mix and people will be like, wow, it sounds really good. And they're like, man, how'd you get that guitar to sound like that? And blah, 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 blah. I'll solo it out, and they'll be like, it sounds horrible. Well, what happens is there's sympathetic tones that your guitar is going to get, or your drums are going to get, sometimes you have to make stuff sound ugly for it to be actually heard in the mix. So if you soloed it out, it would sound like trash. But then, in the full mix, it just sounds good. That's just my approach to processing in general. I always cut anything above negative 20 dBs and plus 20 dBs. Because, dogs and whales. The only person that can hear below Negative 20 dBs is like dogs and whales, or negative 2,000, whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The only person that can hear that is dogs and whales. Now, that may be true, but when you're mixing, it adds up. Even though you can't hear it, it adds up as kind of like a fuzziness. There's no clarity. At every EQ that I put on every channel, I dip it at 440. 440 is a very crowded frequency. It has a tendency to be really, really crowded. So you don't have to like just dip it. Don't. I used to do, get it out of here, remove it completely. No, just dip it. You don't have to do that. Because once you start going, especially with certain EQs, once you start going all the way down, now you start taking from other frequencies that you don't want, that you don't want to take from. You want those frequencies. Also, in terms of, since you asked about drums, with drums, you really want to make sure you have a full range. When I say full range, you want to take up the whole spectrum, a full spectrum of sound, because drums go from, like, I literally have a mic to pick up sub frequencies down there. That big red thing is to pick up sub. So I have stuff that's below 20 dB. You know what I mean? So I have to definitely cut that. And I have stuff that's higher than, 20K, 20 plus K, whatever dBs, like these cymbals. You know what I mean? These cymbals have tones that some of them, like, only dogs and whales can hear. But that stuff adds up. But you still want a full range. You want the full range. Certain instruments like guitar, that's really tricky a lot of times. Like, I had to record a praise and worship band. And I had a guitar over here, a guitarist over here, and a guitarist over here. Now, they had different tones. But, like I said, I'll pan one hard, like, well, I have them both solo, but the EQ will be sides only. So you're only hearing it from the sides. Or I'll just do this. I won't even do that. I'll make it mono and put it hard, like about 50 left and then like 50 right. So it's about making space, allowing everything to have its own space so you can hear it. One thing I left out with the drum bus, the hi-hats. Like, I pan these 40 over here, and I pan these 40 over there. Because when you close your eyes, if you're listening to the music, if I'm doing this, you want to close your eyes and be like, oh, I can hear him sweeping across. You know what I mean? So, but hi-hats, I think I pan these. I definitely don't pan them 40. I pan them like 50. Yeah, like 50. Some people they say it doesn't make a difference. It makes a difference to me. But people say, well, why don't you go all the way over? It makes a difference. But I pan it 50 because, like, it's over here. It's on this side. And this is over here. It's on this side. And this is, that's picking up hi-hats. It's picking up that. It's picking up that. You know what I mean? You want to be able to close your eyes and hear, okay, his hi-hat's over there. His floor time's over there. The ride's over there. That's why I pan these 40 and that 50. So you can hear a distinction between the hi-hats, between the ride and the floor toms. Of course, the snare, I pan that dead center. The kick, of course, dead center. Those two room mics, of course, they're dead center. So, the room mics, that one, it's about 17 inches from the front of the head. I don't know how far that is. It's looking a little crooked. I got to move it. But that's a considerable distance just to pick up the whole kit. Hold on, I got to move that. It's crooked. Hello from Japan. But yeah, so that's kind of what I do. Um, but you kind of gotta be, you gotta be a little, you gotta be a stickler for having the room mics line up because you're gonna hear it. Like, and I'll say this, another thing, don't mix with your eyes, mix with your ears. Sometimes you gotta close your eyes. Another thing too, get a mono, um, mix in mono. Mix in stereo, but also mix in mono at a low volume. Almost to the point where if somebody's typing next to you, you could hear it. You could easily hear it. Like because what happens is if it's at a low volume and you're satisfied with how it sounds, it's like it forces you to listen. That's what it does. When you're mixing at low volume, it makes you listen. Um, so that um, there's a lot of stuff. So um, but that's like the basics of my drum processing. You know. Also, I'll say this: um, use different speakers. Like I got a set of monitor speakers right there that I mix from. I have another pair right there. I have another pair on top of that. I have one mono speaker that's right there. And I have a small, it's a Bluetooth speaker that you can feed like from a cord. You could use a cord to kind of, to it could take an auxiliary input. I got a burp, but it won't come out. But I also mix on that. I'll also, which I love about Mac, is I could use my cell phone. I could Bluetooth like music. Like I could use it as a speaker, um, and just via Bluetooth. Um, so what I'll do is I'll mix for cell phones. I mix for Androids and I mix for, um, you know, iPhones. Androids and iPhones sound completely different. iPhones sound better. Androids have gotten better, but iPhones just sound so much better, um, in terms of just listening to music. But I mix for cell phones. I mix for iPhone and I mix for Android. Um, so like mix on as many mediums as possible. I mix in headphones. I mix in earbuds. If it sounds good on earbuds, it sounds good on the cell. If it sounds good on earbuds and it sounds good on a cell phone and it sounds good on big closed back headphones, and I've got like one, two, three, four sets of speakers. It sounds good on all those. Really, I've got more than four sets, but I use four sets. If it sounds good on all of that, then I'll go out to a car. I'll go out to my car, and the stereo in my car is set to flat. I don't boost the bass. I don't boost the treble. It's set to flat. If it sounds good in the car, a car is really good because it's kind of like a sound chamber. It's like a car is like oh man, I can't remember there's a thing that they're trying to push. It's got like it's like I can't remember the name of it. Like this weird mix where you got two speakers over here, two speakers over there, and a speaker up there, and a speaker over there. It's never gonna last. Um, but it's kind of like having surround sound. That's the perfect example. When you're mixing in a car, it's like surround sound. Um, but that's where you can hear the balance. You can hear how everything sounds in relation to each other. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's pretty much how I mix down stuff and process stuff. Now, a lot of times I don't have. I've gotten to the point now where I don't. I could just. I've got everything set in like in templates. So I know that no matter what the medium is, it's gonna sound good. It's gonna sound good on a Bluetooth speaker. It's gonna sound good on regular speakers. It's gonna sound good on home stereo speakers. It's gonna sound good on crappy speakers. It's gonna sound good on a crappy Android. It's gonna, you know what I mean? It's gonna sound good booming out of a vehicle, you know. But you want to mix on as many different mediums as possible, and your stuff is gonna sound like trash. But the more you do it, the better it's gonna sound. It's a learning process, you know. But like, you know, if you're working whatever your DAW is, if it sounds good and is working on like if you're mixing something, you're like, oh man, the snare sounds like trash, but the cymbals and the kick sounds good. Okay, set that as a template. Set that channel as a template. So the next time you open up for a new project, that's there. Now, if you're trying to get the snare to sound good, and you're like, okay, I got the snare dialed in, then set that as you remake that template with that snare channel strip setup. You know what I mean? So it's once you get it, it just, you know, set it up as templates so no matter what, you can always go back to it. But that's kind of like a no-brainer. But yeah, man, that's pretty much how I process drums. Now, this is one thing. This is a really small room. This is a one-car garage. Now, the reverb in here is trash because it's so small. So the one thing you have to do is you have to create the ambience. You have to create the space. That's where you have to use like a reverb and all of that stuff. You have to actually create. You know, it's not like I can go like you can go into a church and it'll just sound great because it's built for great acoustics. They know that a band's going to be playing and all of that stuff. So, or like, you know, a nice like hall where it's clean but it's reverby. You know what I mean? That's fine. But if you're stuck in a room like this, like there's a reason why I have these curtains on the wall. You know, I've got other curtains over there. I've got curtains over there. I've got acoustic tile like right there on that door. I've got acoustic tile there. I've got acoustic tile there. I've got a cloud right there, which is basically, it's like a platform. It's about this big. It's like 3.5 feet by 2.5 feet. And it's just dropped down right there. And that's to keep the hard reverberations coming off of the ceiling, because the ceiling's not treated. Like, there's specific places where it is, but in general, it's not treated. So I have acoustic tile there, and I've got a cloud hanging down, and there's a overhead there, and an overhead there. So the sound's not gonna go up, hit the mic, and then go past and pick up the reverberation, like the bouncing off of the hard ceiling, and then hit the mic again. I don't want that. So there's certain spots where I have foam, acoustic foam, to absorb a lot of like bass reverberations. So I try to make this room as dead as possible. But if I wanted to, like, you know, if I want reverb, I want to create space, that's when I start adding reverb. So, you know, in terms of reverb, that's just something you got to play with. You know, I've learned over the years, like my early recordings were horrible. You know, I was really heavy-handed with the effects and everything. But like I've learned over time that you have to really be subtle. And the reason why is because if you're heavy-handed on anything, it's just going to kill the mix. You know, you've got so many instruments and so many variables that you're dealing with. You can't just willy-nilly, you know, you got to be really subtle because stuff catches up. You know what I mean? And it starts to sound really, really muddy. You know, so you got to be really subtle with effects. So Oh, no problem, no problem. I hate when this mic is on. It makes the audio sounds horrible. That's a song by Eric Harlan. Can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm still weak from this flu. I feel horrible. Um, bro, you are like the eighth person that said, bro, you really should start coming up with sample packs. I've had DJs say that. I've had a lot of people say that. I don't know. I don't know, man. I got so much going on. I'm gonna do it. But like, I'm glad you said that. This girl, shut up, shut up. Good Lord, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Who cares? Shut up. I can't deal with this yapping. Um, but yeah, you're like the eighth or ninth person that asked me that question. Hey, have you ever thought about making sample packs? Somebody's trying to tell me something. Oh, yeah. What? Oh, snap. Um, but yeah, you're like, somebody's trying to tell me something. This symbol needs to be higher. But yeah, um, you know what? I'm gonna say this. It's paralysis of analysis. I'm so busy saying, "Well, what am I gonna do?" You know what I mean? Like I'll say this. The reason why I play the way I do is because no matter how good I get, I always feel like I suck. And when you think that way, like people will be like, "Bro, you're so good," and in my mind, I'm like, "You don't really mean that. You being polite. Stop it." Now, logically, I'm like, okay, I put in a lot of years. It makes sense. But I'm very hard on myself, and that I go through paralysis from analysis. I go through that a lot. So, yeah, I need to. I'm like, what am I gonna name it? I don't have anything to offer people. Blah 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 blah. I go through that a lot, man. That's why I don't. A lot of times I just don't do stuff because I'm like, I think myself out of actually doing it instead of just like the Nike commercial, just do it. So yeah, you're not the only person. I'm glad you said that though, because I need to hear that. To get me to like get out of my own way. And I'm gonna be honest, it's pride. It's. I think I know better than what everybody else is saying. That's that, and it kind of it's that's false humility. Like when you're like, oh, I'm not good enough. Everybody's telling you, you should make sample packs. You probably should make sample packs. You know what I mean? But in my insecure mind, I'm like, nah, they don't know what they're talking about, or they're lying. And that's like, if I said that out loud to you, you'd be like, why would I lie to you? I don't know you from a can of spray paint. But that's the weird logic of insecurity. So, you know, just being a little vulnerable, which I don't care about being vulnerable. Everybody's vulnerable. I'm like, you guys are vulnerable. A bomb can land on you. So, we're all vulnerable. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Never mind, never mind, never mind. No. Apple's going to sue them. I'm just worn out, guys. I really am. This telling you, man, I think I had the C19. I had it twice before, man. So I know. I think, and I'm going through that whole post C19. I'm going through the same thing, except it's worse. I had it twice before, and the first time it was kind of mild. Second time it hit kind of hard. This time it's taken a lot to recover from. It's taken a lot. And I'm a pretty healthy guy. I'll be 60 in a few months. So I'm a pretty healthy guy. You know, um, I feel about 35, but I'll be 60 in less than a year. About 7 months. Well, like a mini sample pack, that would be a good idea. That's actually a really good idea. That's a great idea. Hmm. You know what? I'm going to write that down. Well, what would you guys want to hear, though? That's my thing. I don't like you guys put in the chat what you would like to hear. You know, as in terms of sample pack, because I have like no. I'm telling you, man. I'm like I'm very much the analysis. I mean paralysis by analysis kind of guy. I'm like a nervous guy. There's certain things I'm secure about. I'm secure about fighting. I ain't got no problem with that. I'm trained. Boxing, kickboxing, and wrestling, freestyle wrestling. So I'm I ain't got a problem with that. You know, um, never been insecure about women because I've just yeah, never really been into women. Always been into just music. I messed around, but I kind of stayed single. And relationships I've ever had, it was kind of I laid out like, look, music is my first love. You are the second. When you leave, music will be here. So you decide. You know, um, but I've never been the guy chasing women or concerned with women, so I've never really developed the insecurity. I'm married now, happily married with 4 kids, but I've never really chased that stuff. But the only thing I've always been insecure about is my playing. Am I good enough? Am I, you know what I mean? That, you know, it's, you know, it's been, it's, I've always been insecure about it. So I always talk myself out of stuff. Ah. Yes. Now, did you guys see that? That's why I keep this. It stinks right now, but I always keep it there because a lot of times I'll swing it around and it'll hit my mouth, and I'm afraid that it'll like boop, knock one of my teeth out or something like that. So. Um, because you got that James Brown funk. Is this? Well, that's like James Brown variations. Now, you got the loose funk. Now, sorry, my phone's going dead. You got the loose funk of James Brown played a lot of tight funk. Played that. That's kind of like the James Brown kind of tight funk. George Clinton just kept it really loose. Nothing about the boogie, it always make me dance. About the boogie, She turned me out and out. That's that George Clinton loose funk. Now you got the Dave Garibaldi funk. Or he's very syncopated. Or you might know this Dave Garibaldi beat. That's a classic Dave Garibaldi beat. Now you got Harvey Mason, linear funk. that linear, everything is. That's that linear Harvey Mason funk. Now the modern kind of funk is it's the drunk feel. That's I've heard it called the drunk feel. Here's something tight. Really, it's not tight. It's just straight on the beat. It's just a basic beat. You know what I mean? It's that loose. It's, you know, they call it the drunk flow. They call it the Jay Dilla kind of flow. But that's that loose Chris Dave flow. You know, but also because somebody put jungle and drum and bass. I got to write that down. And there's something else. There's a guy, J.D. Beck. He has, and a lot of people, they'll catch on to it. He has a different kind of funk. If you look at like Domi and JD, like they've got a song called Moon. The song is like incredibly funky. But he does something at the end during the piano solo. It's like this. That's crazy. When I first heard it, I was like, what in the world is he doing? This push pull? Sorry, guys. That's an alarm. I have a lot of alarms on my phone just from like fight training. Like I'd be like, okay, oh, what is it, 4 o'clock? 5:30, 6, whatever. I'd be like, oh, time to go train. And I would train for an hour. I would like work on jabs, work on leg kicks, you know, whatever. And then that's, you know, and it's just, it's a habit I've developed from just years of just training, fight training, you know. So, and it becomes annoying. And not only that, but now that I'm used to it, I got like 12 alarms that go on throughout the day. They start at 4:30 and 4:30 a.m. and they end at 8:30 p.m. But that's why they don't, you know, it's always going off. You know, I always got to get up and cut it off or whatever. And the way you guys can hear is all of a sudden you're like, hey, there's no sound. Be easy, bro. My brother Ben. Ah, Memphis rap. Huh. I'm gonna write that down. Because I'll be honest, bro. A lot like trap music, that's not an Atlanta thing. That's tennis. That's Memphis rap. Like that's what it is. It's Memphis rap. It's all the whole like really um all of it comes from Africa Bambaataa. And Africa Bambaataa got it from the German band Kraftwerk. Kraftwerk helped Kraftwerk is the roots of everything trap, everything like that booty shake music, all that German band. Matter of fact, they invented electronic drums. Kraftwerk, they were way ahead. They were so far ahead of their time. Like it was, they were like, I'm telling you, everything, all the sounds, all the like the sequencing, everything, all like all the 808s and all that stuff comes from Kraftwerk. You know what I mean? It went from Kraftwerk because from like I remember growing up. I don't know about white people, but Kraftwerk was huge in the black community. They're still huge in the black community. Kraftwerk. So I grew up well, we bought every album, and you went to parties where you would hear like, you know, huh, ha, huh, huh, ha, huh, ha, huh, all those old school, but you would hear it blended in with trans, Europe, express, yeah, all of that stuff is like all the electronic stuff, man. That's that, especially in hip hop. It all came from them dudes from Dusseldorf. They invented that stuff, and I can prove it. Like there's a direct line. It goes from Kraftwerk to the invention of hip hop, and then nobody had drum machines. Not back then. They were broke, so they were just using Kraftwerk beats. They would just use the instrumentals and loop those, and rap over those. And then Luke came around with Two Live Crew, and he took all of that kind of morphed it into something else a little faster. Then that whole southern sound that was popping in the South. The guys from Memphis, they started using it, and they kind of slowed it down. You know what I mean? And they kind of put their own twist on it. Now the thing is, there's a guy. He's a producer. I can't remember his name. He's from Memphis. Jazzy Faye. A lot of the samples and everything